Welcome to the Kara Michelle Show, where we break out of the matrix together and return heaven to earth. This is a place for the spiritual seekers and leaders, the dreamers and doers, the conscious creators and world changers. You can expect a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but mostly a whole lot of purpose, freedom, and sovereignty. And of course, all things quantum. May this podcast serve you in remembering the truth of who you are, all that you came here to do, and how deeply supported you are in doing it. You are incredibly powerful and your mission is protected. So it's time to dial up your frequency and recalibrate to your higher self and limitless potential. Get ready, because we're about to blast off. A new reality awaits you on the other side. I'll see you there. These are the biggest mistakes I made while building my spiritual business. And whether you are starting out or you're on the path and you feel like you're coming against some roadblocks or just wanting to create more simplicity, the purpose of this episode is to support you in doing exactly that and learning from my mistakes so that you don't have to make the same ones. Because I have made some very costly and very time consuming, as well as very energetically draining mistakes. And I think what I'm about to share with you is something I see far too often that people fall into. It's really easy to get stuck in these traps. And the sooner you can become aware of them and get out of them, obviously, the better. So I'm going to dive right in and share first that not only is this something I've noticed from my own business, but it's been a huge key factor in clients I've worked with privately over the years. And I've worked with clients who were at the very core stage of just starting a business and wanting to make their first sale, as well as those who were wanting to scale to 10K, 20K, 50K months, and also working privately with people who were not operating coaching businesses, but working in different businesses and different lanes of entrepreneurship, wanting to anchor in their first $1 million years. And it's like across the board, I see these same things being so key. And this is a lot of the energetic principles and mindset work that I think gets tossed aside because we have this really deep belief that business is different and business has different laws, and it doesn't. Spoiler alert, the laws of the universe apply to everything. So it doesn't matter if it's business, these same laws come into play here. And that leads me into mistake number one, because when I started my business 5 years ago, I had already been deep in my own healing work. Everything that helped me, work through traumas, grief, rape, pain, limiting beliefs, unworthiness, insecurities, anxiety, and travel the world and start pursuing my own inner healing, but also my own purposeful way of living. I had been on that journey for like 6 or 7 or 8 years already, 6 years already, when I decided to launch a coaching business. And so I already understood so much about manifestation, law of attraction, the mindset and the identity work and the importance of who you are being. But I had a lot of beliefs that business was different. And so I threw everything out the window and treated my coaching business and marketing and everything as a totally different entity. And I would say that is mistake number one, where I went wrong from the get-go, because business doesn't have different laws. So the number one thing when you're wanting to build or scale your business is very much about the energetics and the beliefs around who you are and what is possible for you. So if you are trying to force or hustle and you're operating from lack and scarcity, fear and desperation, that's operating from a version of you who is currently struggling or who is unsuccessful or who feels unworthy and doesn't believe it's possible, that is a very different energy that you are showing up in your business compared to the version of you who already has the things and is just like embodied and confident and showing up like this is just normal and this is no big deal. And so when I first started my business, I threw all my inner work out the window and I started getting really sucked into the hustle and the 3D sides of business. We can get into this so much deeper, but a lot of it, as always, stemmed from my subconscious beliefs around how business operated, how money worked, because of what I observed from my dad growing up. I grew up with my dad running his own business with my uncle, and I saw the hustle, I saw the sacrifice, I saw the way that everything came secondary or third, even. Like everything came very much on the back burner to the business. And I didn't see a very healthy example of balanced life and business relationship. So I had these unconscious beliefs that business had to be hard, that you had to hustle. And I also had a lot of beliefs that like you had to go into debt first in order to then succeed, which often comes from an unworthiness and a belief that like suffering is a necessary part of the process, pain is necessary, and that's simply not the case. The more you reprogram your subconscious out of that, you realize that like ease and joy and these things are actually your birthright and can be the baseline. It doesn't have to start with this immense drop off or this immense amount of pain first. But I didn't know that at the time. So I focused, I got so pulled into hustling and trying to make things work and coming from a place of fear and desperation, where instead of doing things from excitement and from like joy around what I was here to create and the way I was like, ooh, off on my own, quitting my 9 to 5, I started my business and went on a road trip through America, doing my first house sits down through the States while I built my business. I hired my first business coach for 10K when I didn't have it, which was a huge stretch, but I had the belief of like, you gotta invest money to make money, and I'm gonna have a 10K month in my first launch, so it's all gonna come back and be worth it. And I lost sight of what the energetic alignment would be for that 10K launch or for the success that I desired or for the clients that I wanted to serve. It became very focused on the physical action from a place of fear. And I see this a lot because we get caught up in the 3D reality because it's right there in our faces and it's hard to ignore it when you see something or you are like reminded of it day in and day out. But actually, that's like the least important thing you want to focus on because you want your beliefs, your energetics, and then your action to be aligned from the results. So I actually manifested some amazing things right before my first launch of my Thrive program, which was a mastermind at the time. I set these incredibly lofty goals, which again, I think are beautiful as long as you don't base your self-worth on whether you achieve them or not, because the second you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure, and that's one of my other many mistakes would be because I didn't reach the goal in a fairly unrealistic time frame. I then felt like a failure. I felt like I was just like a letdown. I wasn't able to prove myself. My ego didn't feel validated. And I made a lot more decisions from that desperation, that fear, that deep desire to make everything happen now. And I dismissed my intuition. I stopped listening to my own body and my own inner knowing of like, ooh, this thing feels really good. Let's take that path. Or, oh, that's a definite no. Don't pay another 10K for a coach. Don't join a year-long mastermind for 2,500 a month. When you have no money, you have fully maxed out credit cards, and you're operating from a business model that doesn't actually feel good to you, and you're already in a weight of debt that you haven't experienced before, so it feels like a lot. This is not the time to dig a hole deeper without first focusing on rebalancing and like getting yourself a little bit more grounded and confident. Acting from that scarcity and fear just digs holes deeper and deeper and makes it harder to believe that you're capable of getting out of it, harder to believe in that deep inner knowing that you are meant to take this path. So, the best word of advice I would share would be to get into that alignment first and really create the space for your body, because it's so wise, and your higher self, your intuition, because it's incredibly wise. Create the space for that to come through and drop in first, and then take the action. It's like when you get this ping from your heart, or that internal knowing, that compass of like, yes, I want to do this thing, and it lights me up. That is so worth trusting. That's a very different feeling than I need to prove myself. I'm struggling. If I don't do this in this time, the worst case scenario is going to happen. So I'm going to go do this and I'm going to make it happen. Those are very differing energies, and you're going to get very differing results because of law of attraction, law of assumption, law of cause and effect. Pretty much. What other laws are there? I should get the list out. There's like 12 universal laws, I think, that literally apply every single time, all the time. And most of those were being contradicted by the fear that I personally was operating in, and the fear that I see a lot of people operating in as well. So, so the really cool part though is that your alignment is what's going to help manifest the things that you want. So it was amazing at the beginning of my business. I knew I wanted to have this 10K launch. I had a goal of bringing in 30 clients, which would have been a lot more than 10K. So, like, numbers didn't add up, but that's not my strong suit. But on top of that, at the time, I had just started a business. My Instagram had been a travel account, and I didn't really have any knowledge, any following. And the business coach I hired, I would say, probably wasn't actually the best at creating a solid marketing strategy for me to be confident in. With that said, I really held the belief and held the vibration, and I was open to a higher power guiding me and also bringing in the people that were meant to come in. And as I was a couple weeks out from launching this program and starting to talk about it and fill the seats, I had my video with the dodo where I rescued a bird finally got posted on their accounts, and it brought in like 10,000 almost, I think, followers on Instagram. So my account went from just a girl traveling and doing yoga and meditation around the world and working with elephants and wandering around barefoot in the jungle to saving this bird, having a really beautiful love story with it, and people coming in who could feel my energy, who could feel my heart, and just wanted to like know more about me. And at the same time as that, maybe a week later, another post or video of mine went viral. It was a crying selfie talking about grief and talking about how those waves and those roller coasters come in, and just the importance of embracing our emotions and sharing how, like, even though it feels weird to take a picture of myself doing this, it's so healing to like allow yourself to show these things and not shame or judge yourself for a natural human emotion. And Self Magazine had reposted on their account, and that brought in like a handful of followers. And so I saw this huge shift and this huge manifestation of like, whoa, now I have this opportunity to be in front of more people and fill these spots and attract the right clients. But this leads me into the next mistake, which was not following the momentum, not going with that flow and believing that I was supported. And what happened for me at that time was, because even though these really cool things were happening and I was getting proof of like, Kara, you're supported in doing this. I had some people start to reach out interested in my coaching that I was about to share and interested in my story and the way I had healed my traumas and overcome some of these really heavy times. I had all this proof, but my self concept, my self image was not as a successful coach. It was not as a successful marketer. It was not really even as a confident woman yet, like more confident than I had been, 100%, but not fully confident in what she was here to share. And part of that is because it was a completely new program. It was my first time bringing it to people. And so, of course, you have a little bit of like, ooh, will this work as much as I believe it will? Like, I want to get the feedback. I want to start supporting people and seeing firsthand that, yes, in fact, the things that changed my life are now simplifying and changing other people's lives in a fraction of the time. But until you have that physical proof, sometimes it's hard to believe in it. So I began looking at my current 3D and focusing on the negatives, focusing on the ways I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel prepared. I didn't trust the strategy or the sales funnel that the coach had helped me make, or my marketing attempts. I didn't believe in the way I was showing up, and I didn't feel fully confident and fully behind it. And so then things started to kind of sabotage and spiral. And if you've been in that place, business or career or relationship wise, any area of your life, what happens when you start to spiral? Like, you cling even more and you dig even more and you force even more, because your ego kicks in and the fear becomes so much that you're like, I got to do everything I can to fix this. But you're fixing it from your pain, from your trauma, from your lack and scarcity, from your doubt, which is the worst place to fix it from, compared to taking that space, getting that grounding, tuning into your body, your intuition, to God, and fixing it from that space. So, what ended up happening is I actually had a 10K launch. I filled the spots with amazing human beings, but it didn't happen the way my ego wanted it to. It didn't look the way I had anticipated. It came in on payment plans, so I didn't see the 10K up front. And as I said, I'm bad with numbers, so I didn't even realize it was a 10K launch. I was like so defeated because it didn't work the way I thought it should have, and continued to then create this identity of me being a failure in business. And I forgot to even say, it's just pinging at this moment. This was my second business venture, because 2 years prior, I started importing recycled paper products from Sri Lanka made out of elephant poo and recycled paper. And that was like my first business. And that one, similarly, I learned so much and it was such a good experience, but I didn't see myself as a businesswoman. I didn't see myself as successful. I took everything personally, and so I got a lot of no's. I reached out to a lot of businesses, to universities, to stores. I was trying to create custom products as well as sell products that I had already imported. I was trying to do all the things to cover all the bases, even trying to get in at the zoos and like other animal sanctuaries and stuff like that. And literally did not, like, I got a couple yeses, I guess. But again, the no's were so loud and so many that it overpowered the wins, which leads me to mistake number, I've lost count, of like, if you're focusing on the losses, you're going to feel defeated. You're going to feel like a failure. You're going to fuel the stories that don't serve you and the identity that you actually don't want to be giving any power to. Instead of me celebrating that, like, I set up a shop at a market and I made $100 and I got to talk to people and share about the products, and that meant I could send $10 to the elephant sanctuary and help with like an upcoming elephant's knee surgery. Like, instead of celebrating that, my ego was so defeated and felt like it was a personal reflection of me not being good enough, and I wasn't reaching my standards or my expectations for myself, and therefore I felt like it wasn't worth celebrating, like there was nothing good here. So don't let your mistakes or your failures become your identity, your story for yourself. And this was something that then carried with me because I felt like, oh, now I'm like so on board. I know this is the path. I'm so ready for the coaching business. I'm taking a leap when I don't have the money. People around me are telling me not to do this, but I'm trusting my intuition. And now I'm not actually proving it. I'm not able to follow through. I don't have the results to show for what I believed. So I must be a failure. I must have made a mistake. But stubborn Taurus over here won't accept that. So let's dig our heels in even more and force it to happen. And as I said, I dug that hole deeper and deeper because I kept operating from a place of wounding, from a place of never feeling good enough, never believing that what I was doing could bring success. Shiny object syndrome began to kick in like crazy. And I would say that's probably one of the worst things that can happen as a business owner, and especially, well, it doesn't matter what niche you're in or what kind of business, but when you become too open to options or strategies or other things and you're not certain in yourself, then how do you stay grounded? How do you not chase those things? Because they look so good. That's why they're shiny objects. They're so enticing, and there's so many promises out there with really bold claims. And it doesn't always happen that way. And it definitely won't happen that way if you're still seeing yourself from your pain, if you're still in the consciousness of the 9 to 5 employee, or if you have really toxic lower programming around how business works, how money works, what you're worthy of, that hustle is a necessity, like all these different underlying things that come into play that just do not support you in moving forward. And leading into that, I would say the last biggest mistake that has become illuminated, which ties into the rest, but it's really become clear the last year as I literally burned my business to the ground and took a long pause from a lot of the things that I was pushing and doing and trying, and also a long pause of investing in business coaches, marketing teams, strategies, was uncovering and really looking at what is karmic and what is aligned. Karmic choices are based from wounding, based from trauma. So I say that as in, I had a lot of my dad's karma, I would say, in terms of certain business things he did and that I learned that were programmed in me that I'm not mad about. It was cool, I got to observe and then clear stuff, and there were things I even knew, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be like him in that way. And yet I unconsciously did it without realizing it because I just got so sucked into things that I didn't even notice what was going on until it got more intense. But also karmic for my own self around different energetics, different traumas, different things from this life and past lifetimes that made me operate from a lower version of myself and from that wounding compared to the aligned higher self. Aligned business to me feels freaking amazing. It's like this is exactly what your heart and soul knows and wants, and you're taking action to create it. Doesn't matter what the noise is, doesn't matter what the shiny objects are, doesn't matter who says you can or can't do it. You're so complete, you're so in your own little bubble, your own little vortex, and you're following your intuition and that guidance and taking action from there. It's beautiful. And you can feel the contrast when you start to do that. You can also feel the contrast when you fall out of it. Karmic is like where the wounding, the trauma, the pain is always there. And most of my years of my business was karmic, building my business in a way that wasn't sustainable. It wasn't actually what I wanted. And that's like such a face palm because I remember before I even started, like I wanted to have a group mastermind, run it that way a couple times so that I could work with people privately, support them, make sure the program worked. But then I wanted to make everything online courses. I'm so multi-passionate. I'm incredibly energetically sensitive, and I love being in hermit mode. I love spending majority of my day either out in nature or traveling in the quantum realms and like in deep meditation, deep process, and teaching on a bigger scale, teaching in a scale that I couldn't do if I was doing one-to-one or group mastermind. And yet I never honored my soul, and I kept doing what I thought I should do or what the coaches I kept hiring were doing. So I stayed out of alignment. And when we're out of alignment, we force more. We have to try harder. It doesn't feel easy or flowy or fun. It feels like work. And the best belief shift I started to make when I moved to Mexico, even though my business was still a bit misaligned at that time, and I was wanting to start creating the quantum healing programs and being able to talk about that more. I was wanting to step out of the mastermind coaching, but a little bit afraid of like, can I have success doing things a different way? Is it the right time? Should I wait longer? Should I force more? But one of the best things I did at that time was stop seeing it as work and start seeing it as play. Because even that name in itself shifts the frequency of your energy and what you're creating and what you're putting forward. So it's like, oh, I have to go do this work. It's so heavy. So heavy, man. It makes me depressed. And then it's like, oh, I get to go play. What? Yes. Oh my gosh. Who doesn't want to go do that? Let's go play. What does that look like? That looks like doing these things that I love doing, using my gifts in a way that they're meant to be used, serving people in the best way that I'm meant to serve. living from alignment, so life actually feels good and I get to feel the pleasure that is my divine birthright. Karmic patterns don't give you that. Karmic businesses don't give you that. So shifting from what is work, and that doesn't mean I didn't still take action. It doesn't mean I don't still work every day in terms of building my business or showing up and creating things. But the whole framework and foundation of it is completely different. So another mistake was not honoring that sooner, not getting behind it and becoming the version of me of like, this is how things work, this is how I want to show up. One of my mentors, I'm so grateful for her. She's a business coach and she's a fellow projector. And she always just talked about like, you get so clear on the exact ideal reality and the exact ideal business, and you say no to anything that isn't a match. You say no to anything that's taking you away from that path. And the people pleaser in me couldn't say no. I couldn't say no to the shiny objects, to the different strategies, to the people coming in and dangling things in front of me or offering shiny promises that took me off and distracted me from what I actually wanted and cost me years. And that's on me. Because had I just stayed so true to my vision from day one, and the vision I was reminded of in 2020 when I returned to my mom's in the most debt I had been in yet, and reevaluated like, what kind of business do I want to build? This doesn't feel in alignment. Clearly, it's not working. God is like banging my head against the wall, being like, this is not your path. And I kept trying to force it to happen. And as I reflected and journaled at my mom's house, I was like, I want to make online courses. I want to just have lots of different courses for all the things I'm passionate about. I want to be free to talk about holistic healing and the foods that we eat, to talk about my water business that I love, to help with trauma and healing, but not be working so intimately with people because it's a lot for me to hold space for that every day. And I want to have space to help more people. I want to be communicating in channels like YouTube or podcast or Instagram, whatever, sharing every day. And I love creating content. So my priority should be creating content. And what happened is that I honored that for maybe a month or so. And then I fell off because another shiny object came in, or I got pulled into needing to make money and working for someone else, starting to fall further and further from my truth and the way I wanted to show up or create a business. And more mistakes were birthed from that place. So I could probably go on for hours. But at the end of the day, the biggest summary, the biggest overarching theme around all of these mistakes was the inner alignment. And did I trust what actually felt best for me? Because I could have started with that strategy from day one, and I didn't. I could have shifted to that strategy in 2020, 2 years later, when I remembered that's what I wanted, and I didn't. I believe 2022, I came back around thinking this, actually, I did 100% thinking this is what I'm going to do, and I didn't. And I kept getting the signs, I kept hitting the roadblocks, I kept not having fun in the way that I wanted anymore, like it wasn't feeling how I imagined it to be. And I kept trying to force things that weren't meant for me. So I invite you to reflect on, are you trying to force something to work in a way that you actually don't want? And if so, what is the voice? Where did that voice come from that's telling you this is the way? Some of it for me was voices from other coaches, That was a lot of it. Everyone saying what strategy is right and wrong, and you can't have success doing that. And it was like massive overload in my head. But some of it was also the voices of my parents and the fact that I didn't grow up seeing my mom have a business or have a career or have a passion. And I didn't grow up seeing my dad have a healthy relationship to business where he loved going to work every day and he was excited about what he was doing and he had balance and prioritized himself. So, as a conscious creator and as a light worker, someone who's here doing really big things in the world, it's so important that you start to prioritize what feels good, what actually supports you, and create from that space, knowing that you can create your business to look however you want it to be. You can create it in a million different ways. There's a million different strategies that work. There's a million different ways you can get there. Infinite timelines and pathways to bring you where you're meant to be. Whatever is destined for you will not pass you by. It's truly a matter of alignment of whether it comes in tomorrow, whether it comes in a week, whether it's a year, whether it's 10 years. And I know for a fact for myself, I could look back and say, oh, I could have jumped onto this timeline so much sooner had I honored my intuition back then and followed my highest excitement. But I also can look at it and go, but you learned a shit ton of really good lessons in that time. And it brought you down different paths and different countries and different people and different opportunities to heal and so many things that happened because I didn't follow my alignment immediately. And it's beautiful to get to a point now where I once saw that as me being a failure, I can now see it as like me just being human and learning and redirecting as I go and giving myself the compassion and love and the grace for the amount of healing that took place along the way and the ways that now I know what I want to create, and now I'm no longer available for any of the distractions that are going to pull me off that path. And I wouldn't have landed that kind of certainty in myself, in my strategy, in my new structure, if I hadn't maybe tried a few things on first and realized, oh, I don't want this. And I think I want this, but now that I have it, I kind of don't. And maybe I want that thing, but actually, now that I finally worked all the way to get over here, I'm realizing I actually want more free time, or I actually want to impact in this way, or branch out into that thing, or open up space for this other venture. And it's that ongoing process that literally never ends while you co-create your business. But do it from a place of following your highest excitement, trusting the alignment, and it will be so much easier, so much faster. You are worthy of a business that feels really good. You are worthy of it being exactly the way you want it to be, even if no one else is operating their business that way. Even if you see very few people with that level of freedom or that level of joy and pleasure and passion for what they're creating, if that's what you want, you get to create that. It's about taking your power back and remembering that none of those karmic things, none of the shiny objects, none of other people's beliefs or perceptions around what you can and can't do need to actually have any power over what you're creating in your field. And trusting yourself, following the intuition, being that channel for higher guidance, allowing God to guide you, because there's no better guide than the all-knowing creator who's literally designed you for this thing and is like, hey, I'm trying to bring you over here. Can you just stop being so fucking stubborn, Kara? Please. That's what it's saying. That's what God is saying. And like, if we follow that, If we allow it to be easy, allow that path of least resistance to move through, it can become play. It can become simple. It can become so aligned that it no longer feels like work. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing, my friend. So I hope you can avoid some of these mistakes. I hope you can learn through my process. I know my biggest income goals always came from my greatest alignment. And more than the money, like my greatest impact, the greatest manifestations of things I attracted, opportunities, people, networking, connections, it came from that alignment and from being in that higher frequency, as well as from already seeing myself as that identity, already seeing myself as the person. Like, I imagined being the 10K followers. I wanted that link, I wanted that swipe up. Oh my gosh, you remember that? That feels like ages ago. I wanted that swipe up in my stories that you only got from 10K. And I remember like just feeling the excitement about like, yes, that can happen so fast for me. I'm so excited about it. And that was when those different features in the dodo video went viral and these things came in and the numbers hit. And it was so easy for the manifestation to come because I didn't have resistance and I wasn't focused on fear or the things that were wrong or the way I thought it had to take forever. But then fast forward, the more I got into fear and debt and scarcity and desperation, the less I believed in what was possible for me and the less I believed in myself. And I started to give power to the doubts. I didn't fully believe in the quantum. I didn't fully believe in the possibilities. I wasn't prioritizing that alignment. And I wasn't in the identity of like, yeah, I already got the 10K. Boom, it manifested so quick. Or like, oh, I got this goal or this much. Any single time that I manifested that next level, the 20K month, I felt into it and I trusted the things that were feeling really good. And I was open to the fact that this could come in way faster and way easier than it ever has. And then it did. And then the 60K month was like doing the deep energetic and subconscious reprogramming and allowing myself to live and operate from the vortex of like, this is who I am. So, of course, the money's there. I get to operate from this place. I get to go do yoga every day. I'm not sitting on my computer working because I've got the money in the bank. I'm doing the key things from a place of excitement and I'm attracting it in. And I'm simplifying my business even more to make it the structure that I want. And I'm saying no to the things that aren't in alignment. I'm getting more honed in on my vision as that business coach of mine, the projector babe. She's like such a fucking queen. How she taught me of like, get so crystal clear on what you want to create. And anything that isn't a match for that, you say no. Your standards have to be so crisp because there's going to be a million offshoots and side paths and shiny objects and things showing up to try to distract and pull you off that path. So if you don't know what you want, you're going to end up somewhere you don't want to be. But if you know what you want and you're only trusting the things and saying yes to the things that lead you to that, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. So I hope this helps you learn from some of these mistakes, recalibrate to what is actually the best for you, what actually feels the most aligned. And if you're wanting any support with the subconscious reprogramming, I've got my quantum healing hypnosis bundles down below. So many incredible packages there for you, whether it's focusing on overflow and your money signature and your wealth consciousness, your beliefs around what you're worthy of, what is possible for you, whether it's about tapping into your purpose and showing up in a greater way, really grounding that into the earth to support with the new earth paradigm that we're shifting into. or whether it's about building a legacy and expanding far beyond what you've already done and you're wanting to create in even bigger ways. Or there's a bunch of other ones that are equally amazing for confidence, relationships, um, genetic, like DNA upgrades, so many things. So that link is down below for you as always. And I'm so excited for what you're here to build. I'm so excited for what you're creating. Go out there and slay, but do it from alignment. Get the energetics and the mindset right first. And then take the action from that version of you, from the future self. You're going to be blown away by what happens when you do that. The 3D will fall into place, I promise you. It all starts within and it all starts with that energy. So focus there, and we'll be celebrating your big shifts very soon.